On 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, I find this extraordinary. ACT is supposedly the party of transparency, led by Rodney Hyde, who of course has shown us all in the time I've been in Parliament his complete lack of transparency and accountability. There was his travel, of course, and now we see a situation where a minister is deposed and the people of New Zealand are not informed at all as to the reasons for that. We have the unbelievable situation where the Prime Minister tells us that despite knowing that this was, as we found out recently, that this was on the cards for nearly 2 weeks, the Prime Minister has no idea why. That's what he's told the public of New Zealand. Now look, I mean, what are we to make of this? What are we to make of the demise of Heather Roy? Is it because she didn't do a good job as Minister? Is it because of some of the reasons that my colleague Trevor Mallard, very serious matters that Trevor Mallard have outlined about secret papers and papers being taken by Rodney Hyde? Certainly we know that Rodney Hyde is indeed a bully. And as a Member of Parliament from Auckland, I know that to be true, as do all Aucklanders. We have seen his bullying behaviour and tactics over the formation of the Super City. Here we see a situation with a caucus of 5 where he can't control that situation without having to throw out one of his own members, in fact his own deputy. So you do wonder what that says for his ability to establish a structure that works for the diverse population that makes up Auckland. But who is in charge here? Certainly you do have to wonder if the real reason that Heather Roy is gone is because Rodney Hyde has all of the power in the ACT party, because after all, every single one of those members is reliant entirely on Rodney Hyde and Rodney Hyde winning Epsom. Without Rodney, there is no ACT party in this Parliament. So he certainly has enormous power. We know he's a bully. Put those two things together, and clearly Rodney wanted gone of Heather Roy. Now, we don't know the precise reason why, whether she challenged him, as has already been asserted, whether he felt she wasn't up for the job. And the Prime Minister, as effectively the person in charge of our cabinet, the most senior person in the country, can't tell us why either. Well, I think New Zealanders have a right to know. I also want to take the time to talk about what this says about the Consumer Affairs portfolio, and I want to congratulate the new Minister of Consumer Affairs. I think that's only proper as Labor's Consumer Affairs spokesperson, and I will be working with Mr Boscawen in a productive manner, I'm sure. But what message does it say about the importance of this portfolio? Because basically you can get rid of the current minister and just put another one of your members in the place. And I do wonder about that. Consumer affairs isn't particularly important in tough economic times, like the times we are facing at the moment, where we've got unemployment rates going from 6 to 6.8% in the last quarter, 159,000 people unemployed, 19,000 more over the last 3 months. And in tough economic times, making sure that consumers are well informed, making sure that consumers are protected from rorts and rip-offs is particularly important. So having some sense of what has happened to the Minister of Consumer Affairs seems to me to be an important question for the public of New Zealand. Now, the Minister has effectively been summarily dismissed, something, of course, this government is very fond of, and we're going to find a situation where all New Zealanders, for the first 3 months of their employment, will be in a situation where they can be dismissed without any reason and without any recourse to justice. And, of course, that's precisely the situation that Heather Roy is in. Now, I would like to just make a few comments about consumer affairs in a very constructive manner to Mr Boscawen as the new Minister. I think there's a number of areas that do need looking at. Improving consumer knowledge and protection, looking after vulnerable consumers, and I am hopeful that Mr Boscawen's stated concern for the victims of loan sharks may mean that perhaps we're going to have more interest shown in this particularly important issue, one that National and ACT to date have shown complete disdain and lack of concern about. So targeting exploitation, I'd recommend to Mr Boscawen, is pretty important. Of course, there is the need to update consumer law, but in a way that takes account of the view of consumers. Now, one of the areas I think is a bit of a problem for an ACT Minister of Consumer Affairs is that, of course, consumer affairs does require regulation, something that, of course, we know ACT are not particularly aware of. Finally, I'd say the other matter is the need for recognition of the greater consumer awareness that there is globally. Thank you.